Alright guys, so today we gotta talk about characters in Withering Waves. Now, there's a hot debate going around where people are saying that there is actual power creep in Withering Waves, but then the other side of the community says, well, as long as you can clear with your units, what does it matter if there is some sort of power creep? So today I want to talk to y'all and take your opinion regarding power creep and if some of the old units are falling off. Now, I will say, in terms of value, there are units that have fallen behind, and that's to be expected, as some of these units that are slowly but surely falling a little bit behind are characters from about a year ago. Nonetheless, like I said, yes, you can clear content with pretty much every character in Withering Waves, but I want to see what this video here by Juice has to say. The title is, Are Wuwa's Old Units Falling Off? So let's see what they cooked up and what we have to say about their, their opinions on this topic.
Are WUWA's older units starting to lose their luster? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice and let's get into it. Okay, before we continue any further, I would like to say, every main DPS in Wuthering Waves as of now is capable of clearing TOA.
Yes.
I am not trying to say that 1.x characters can't clear anymore, or that they're flat out bad. That is not the point that I am trying to highlight here by any stretch of the imagination.
That's a good take. That's a totally valid take, bro. You can absolutely clear content with everybody. But if we're going to be, objective and we're going to really sit down to look at the characters, what they offer, the damage they're doing, there's definitely improvements and changes that have been added, to characters as time has gone by. So it's a very valid video and it's starting very good, right? Because flat out making a video where you're gonna just shit on the 1.0 units is gonna get you a lot of hate, and not only is it gonna get you a lot of hate, but the reality of it is that it's just rage bait at that point. So this take is absolutely valid. I'm 100% with it right now.
And yes, if you do put a bit of extra time and effort into these characters, they can definitely perform insanely well.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to call them bad at all. However, what I am trying to point out is that I do feel like 1.x DPSs are starting to lose their luster in comparison to 2.x DPSs. We're seeing a genuine rise in power level.
It's not just the DPSs. Let's be honest, right? If we're talking about DPSs, we got to talk about characters like, for example, Gion. A great character, great design, great kit, very, new player friendly. But when you compare Gion's damage and Gion's rotations to, Cardathea, Zani, Furlova, the fusion team, he's falling behind. And it's not just because he doesn't have a dedicated support, which I know some of y'all are going to say. It's just the fact that his multipliers and such aren't doing as much as some of these new units that are, a little bit more cracked. Nonetheless, you can still clear a lot of content. The same could be said about a character like Changli, that ever since her release, she was rather low in the damage department compared to some of the other characters. Nowadays, it's even more noticeable because if you look at the premium team, even though she's the main DPS of the Fusion premium team, she's the character that has the least value in the Fusion premium team, which is kind of funny. But it doesn't just go about DPSs, right? If we look at characters like Yin Lin has kind of fallen off. I dare say she's probably the character that has not fallen off, but hasn't stood the test of time as well as some other characters, right? She's not the best option for a bunch of different teams because of the way she actually works. And even though she's still good, she still looks amazing, there are other options for teams that you would want to run with her, right? The only team that I could really see Yin Lin being unique to is the Yao team. That's it. So it's not just about the DPSs. Some of the supports from 1.0 have started to, per se, fall behind a little bit. And it's, once again, it's expected. It's been over a year for some of these banners.
And I thought that this would be interesting to discuss. For starters, if we take a look at Changli Yao, who was a free DPS that came out in 1.2, he's soon being replaced by Augusta.
Baby girl Augusta's coming home tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. S6R5 summons. Tune on into the stream. We're giving out Lunite subscriptions.
And I personally think it's basically guaranteed that Augusta's going to be far better than him.
Oh yeah.
Simply because she's coming out in 2.x. And
she's coming out in 2.x. He was a free unit, and he's already fallen behind the main DPSs in the current meta. He's still great. You can still clear everything with Zhang Liao. I still think he's a great unit. But in terms of damage per rotation, he is behind characters like Carlotta, characters like Cardathia. So yeah, that's to be expected. I do believe Augusta's going to do more damage than Yao.
2.x DPS up until this point has been very, very strong. Your average 2.x DPS is now stronger than your average 1.x DPS, and the further and further we delve into 2.x, the more that this seems to be the case. I will say that this progression has been very natural, and it's still extremely easy to keep up with the meta if you're still using 1.x units, and I think that's very good. However, it's interesting to see how the meta has definitely shifted in favor of the 2.x units.
Of course,
it all started off with Carlotta, and her power level was definitely one of the highest in the game whenever she came out.
She was over 9,000! Bro, we all noticed it, let's be real. If you pulled Carlotta, Carlotta felt like a completely different character, bro. Like, I remember I played the game, right? At launch, I got Jian, Yinlin, Changli, Jinshi, and then I took a break because I lost my account, I lost my YouTube channel, and when I came back for 2.0. I played Carlotta, and I was like, bro, this feels like a completely different, like, gameplay, character, and damage to what I was doing before. She was solo carrying my account. It was crazy.
At the time, Jinshi was the de facto strongest DPS that you could pick up. Phoebe was then added to the DPS roster in 2.1, and she has only continued to be a very powerful DPS over time, constantly receiving new teammates, and still having very impressive damage outputs whenever you use her in her absolution state. 2.3 gave us Zani, and to be fair, her max power level is locked behind quite high cost, but if you're willing to go through that cost, then you've got yourself a very strong main DPS character.
Zani is a beast, bro. Zani is an absolute beast, but like Juice said, and she put it perfectly, her power is really locked behind having PB. You want to have PB as a Zani main. Someone's going to be in the comments, well, actually, you don't need PB for Zani. You can clear all content with Rover, no problem. Bro, we talking about optimization, perfect rotations, and the true value of an optimized team, okay? We know these units can clear with other characters.
And then 2.4 brought us Cardathia, who is obviously the strongest DPS in the game right now. That literally cannot be disputed. She is very, very powerful. And then we go on to get Frolova, we're gonna go on to get Augusta, and the list is just gonna continue on until we eventually get 3.x.
Yep.
So where does this leave the older DPS units of Wuthering Waves, or just the older units in general? When it comes to Jian, he's still definitely a viable pick, and he's still very strong to this day, which is why I'm saying that the game's balancing is still very good, because you can still choose this guy and clear TOA just fine. Still fantastic for mobbing content and such, although you can just play Cardathia if you want a much better aero DPS.
So here's the thing with Jian, right? And I'm gonna just put it just like this, because I'm someone that shares the mentality of what Juice just said, so I agree with her on this regard. The thing is, I'm putting it on a basis that every character has mid-max echoes, every character has their signature weapon, and every character has their optimized team. If that's the scenario, right, which I feel that if you like a character, you mid-max their echoes, get their signature, yada, 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 Jian will still clear Tower, will still clear Whimpering Waste, will still clear holograms. It will still happen, right? But the level of investment that you got to put into a Jian, not only into like their echoes, but the rotations and all of that, is a lot higher than what you got to do for a character like Cardathia in the aero department, right? In the aero DPS department. Cardathia will be able to deal more damage, have faster rotations, have, you know, just overall better gameplay and survivability as opposed to a character like Jian in endgame content. You will still be able to clear everything, but that's the difference. A little bit more investment, but you will be able to clear everything nonetheless. A little bit more tedious gameplay as well.
Jinshi is still a very strong option, but damage-wise, she's definitely been topped out by the 2.x units.
Yeah.
I'd say the interesting case with her is that they could actually bring her back into the meta anytime they wanted.
So that's the thing. That's another thing that I wanted to say. We gotta realize that maybe they released these 1.0 units, and hear me out, guys, maybe they released them a little bit too strong at first, right? Because Jian doesn't have a dedicated sub DPS support. He doesn't have a character that's buffing heavy attack and is buffing arrow damage. That's a 5-star, right? That gives big buffs. Jinshi doesn't have a dedicated sub DPS support that is buffing skill, that is doing coordinated and buffing spectro, right? We don't have those very specific characters, and the fact that we can still say that characters like Jian and Jinshi can hang in the end game, even if it's towards the lower tiers, that means a lot, because a simple way to bring these characters back into the meta, give them a dedicated sub DPS or supporter. Give Jinshi a character that does coordinated attacks, buffs Spectro, and buffs resonance skill damage, and she's to the moon, bro, easily, bro, because they still have a lot of potential. It's more so about the units that you pair with them, and they don't have partners. You have Gion still rocking 4-star Mortifi, which is great, by the way, just like Sanhua, great 4-star units, but they're 4-star units nonetheless. So
Jojo is indeed her best second slot teammate. However, if they ever made a Jojo that has Spectral bonus on outro, along with other abilities that would support Jinshi, she could come right back into the meta again. Her damage is still quite good. But we definitely have stronger options now, and I would say that Spectral DPS is quite an oversaturated niche, because you have
Spectral DPS got a lot, bro. You got Jinshi, you got Zani, and you got Peebs, bro, and all of them could do great. Better gameplay? The fuck, dude? Without Siakone, Carde is worse than Gion, even with her signature. Do you play Gion by yourself? Like, do you just have Gion on the team and that's it? Because last time I checked, this is a team game, right? You play Gion with his best-in-slot current partner, which is Mortifi. So I'm going to do the same for Cardathea, and I'm going to give her her best-in-slot partner. That's why when it comes to specific videos like this and specific breakdowns of meta and discussions, you can't be like, yeah, well, I'm going to run this character with his best-in-slot, and I'm going to run this character with a doo-doo-ass random character, and then compare their damage and see which one's better. Nah. We're running the best optimized Gion comp currently available in the game versus the best optimized comp for the direct competition of Arrow DPS, right? And that's where things come about, when you keep things fair. Well, it's not fair that Gion has a 4-star support and Cardathea has a 5-star. Well, there's no 5-star support for Gion. So you got to keep things balanced. You got to keep things broken down exactly the same way. Otherwise, it's just a jumble mess of random stats that could go either way.
Jinshi, Absolution Phoebe, and Zani all as amazing viable options.
Yeah.
Changli Yao is definitely the DPS that has it the roughest at the minute. Yes, you can still definitely play him well. He's not some horrible DPS by any means. But in terms of limited 5-star DPSs, he may actually be one of the worst at the minute. As it currently stands, he just can't compete.
Ooh, that's an interesting take. Zhang Liao is one of the worst DPSs in the game? Ooh.
With 2.x units. And with Augusta coming out, that's really sealing the deal.
I mean, he's a 1.0 unit. He's definitely up there, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't done head-to-head comparisons, so I don't know where Zhang Liao versus Gion versus Changli versus Jinshi would fare out. I don't know where that comparison of the, like, peak 1.0 DPSs, or like the first 1.0 DPSs would be at. But I don't think that Yao is that much worse than Gion. I think they're around the same level, but I could be wrong. I don't have the testing numbers myself, so
I feel like you don't really have any reason to use him unless you got him for free way back when he was available in 1.2. If you pull for him now and choose to invest in him, he's still going to clear, of course, and he'll still do just fine.
If you want to pull for Yao, just pull for Augusta. She got thick thighs, and, you know, she's strong. She's probably going to be a lot stronger, too.
For you, but there are definitely better DPSing options nowadays, and there's not really anything in specific that he does that other DPSs can't do better. And with Augusta coming out soon as a very powerful Electro DPS, this is only furthering Changli Yao into irrelevancy. Definitely the 1.x DPS that currently has it the roughest. Camellia is interesting because I'd say that she's in a decent enough spot.
What do y'all think about that take, chat? What do y'all think about that? Do y'all think Zhang Liao is the 1.0 DPS that has it the roughest, or would you give that title to Gion or Changli or Jinshi? Like, who would y'all say is the 1.0 character that has it the roughest in terms of, like, their current rotations, the damage they deal, and all of that?
As she's still very good for beginner players. You can stick her with Sanhua, give her an Emerald of Genesis, and she's going to perform just fine for you. But we honestly have plenty of other characters at this point who are able to be very good for beginners. Phoebe is the main example that I want to highlight.
Yeah,
You
Phoebe's...
can easily use her Spectre over in Sanhua and get by just fine. Both of those units are completely free. You can put her on a 4-star craftable, and she'll be just fine.
Yeah, I remember, so way back in the day when I made my review of Phoebe, I had to say that if you're running main, this was before Zani, if you're running main DPS Phoebe, she is one of the most free-to-play friendly characters because you can get her really high stats through her own, echo set, through her own skills, and on top of that, you can run a 4-star weapon on her that is amazingly good for her in particular, and she's gonna do great, bro. Great damage, AoE, freeze. She got a lot that gets added into her kit as opposed to maybe some of them 1.0 units. So yeah, Peebs is definitely a great character as a main DPS for sure.
As a beginner player, your two best possible pulls that you can make are Shorekeeper and Phoebe. And you can also easily go for Carlotta as well, who's actually getting a banner very soon. She's going to be running alongside Augusta. That character is able to use Static Mist, a standard 5-star weapon, and still feel really freaking strong. However, I will add that Camellia is really good in Whimpering Wastes. She is still very, very strong there indeed. This is very much still the case. So there's still definitely incentives to pick up Camellia in particular, but she definitely has more competition these days. However, most of these 1.x DPSs still feel very strong if you invest into them and can play them well. That's just because Wuthering Waves is generally a very well-balanced game.
Yeah.
But we definitely have more powerful alternatives to them now. In terms of the supports or sub-DPS units, they're honestly all fine. I think that all of them aged very well. Juja...
She gonna say about Yin Lian, bro. Our elf waifu, bro, that got left in the dust.
I would still say that she's a very good second slot teammate, because Carlotta has stood the test of time. The esteemed Montelli lady has proven that she is still a Warfall DPS, even right now, so if you get her and you want to get her best in slot hypercarry team, then Judge is still a very good pull, and like I said before, you can also use her with Jinchi, and even though we do have better alternatives to Jinchi at this point, it's still another use case for Jojo which is relevant in my opinion. I used to glaze Vasily Painter a while back, and I would say that her value has depreciated a little bit since then, mostly because Jinchi herself isn't really this insane be-all end-all DPS like she once was.
True.
And as powerful as Carlotta is, she definitely has other options now. And even with that being said, Carlotta's not the only DPS anymore that's capable of outputting her tier of damage. So investing into her specifically is very much more of a...
I think that when you're talking about the output of damage, when things are so close, right? So like if you're comparing, I don't know, Zani, Carlotta, Cardathea, let's say they're all relatively close. That's when you start looking at gameplay. And some of these characters, that's where you really should base yourself off. Like, obviously try to pick some of the stronger units as opposed to older ones, unless you go for design. At that point, you go for whoever the hell you want. But gameplay has a big part into what you should decide when you get these characters, right? A character like Carlotta, for example, has the ability to play at range, is relatively swift, pretty damn strong, easy to build, as you could, put the standard banner 5-star gun on her. And on top of that, she has that ability to freeze the enemy that oftentimes will help people clear content that maybe they were having a hard time with. So just keep that in mind.
Carlotta-centric move, but even so, considering how powerful the DPS is, she's still good in my opinion. Yeah. We all know at this point that Shorekeeper is easily the most well-aged of all of the 1.x units. She is still a very heavily sought-after unit, and for good reason. I don't have to repeat all the points as to why Shorekeeper is good. We all know already why she's good. She's broken, she's only going to continue to be broken, because giving a support crit buffing is one surefire way to make sure that they're always going to be relevant for the foreseeable future. So yes, we all know that Shorekeeper is definitely the most
Like, bro, in all reality, we were talking about this later or earlier in the stream, right? Where some people are saying that Shorekeeper fell off. Some people are saying that Shorekeeper's still the greatest. And I'm going to be honest, I think Shorekeeper will always be a character that will take priority on most people's accounts. And it's simple. She can fit on any team. You can sit here and say, well, what if I run the full fusion team? Yeah, you're going to have to wait until you get every single character. And then after that, you're still going to want to have another team, right? Whereas if you get Shorekeeper, you could slot them in one team, slot it in another team. So long story short is Shorekeeper will have a lot of value for a very long time, because unless you're a whaler, you're spending to get multiple units, and every time you get a new team, you build a premium team for it. Shorekeeper is going to be that character that gets passed around like some of y'all mothers, you know, quite a lot, and it's going to be able to fit on multiple teams. It's just the reality of it, you know? So Shorekeeper still has a lot of value, bro.
Well-aged of all of
There
the
we
older
go.
ones for the foreseeable future. So yes, we all know that Shorekeeper is definitely the most well-aged of all of the older
Yeah.
units. In fact, I would still argue that she's currently the best character in the entire game and gets you the best value for your astrites. So we all already know this. But aside from her, I would say one wildcard that actually aged very well will be Changli. She honestly aged way better than I thought she would back whenever I first pulled.
Hey, yo, bro, I haven't heard a lot of people give praise to Changli. Matter of fact, most people usually shit on Changli. So this is interesting to see. Now, Changli does offer quick swapping like crazy, right? She could fit on multiple teams and just have insane quick swap just with any team that you slot her in. And that's about it. Very quick swappable unit, you know? As the main DPS, very lackluster damage, but she's very quick and very quick swappable. So I do see where she's coming from with this.
For her. After all, she was coming hot off of the trail of Jinchi, who, might I remind you, whenever she came out, she absolutely blew the game up. She was very, very powerful, and continued to be strong for a super long time. And consider how on release, Changli didn't actually feel all that strong. She was kind of limited in her team options, and it took some time for people to understand how she was best played, which would be in Quickswap, of course. But she's honestly only continued to be a very strong unit up until this point. Kuro Games has supplied her with plenty of good supports, namely Brant Weathering Waves, and then Brant himself of course later got Lupa, thus creating the Triple Fusion team. And along the way, even before the Pirate Lad came out, she's always been able to be played in Quickswap teams. Basically, if you were willing to put in the effort to learn Quickswap, you had a very strong unit on your hands. Because although it does require very fast inputs and knowledge of swap windows in each team you're playing, the results would always show, making her a very flexible character. Even to this day, she's a very effectively flexible unit that's able to slot into many different team scenarios. And there's even a more easy way to play her if that's not really your thing, that being hypercarry with Brant in the team. So outside of Shorekeeper, I honestly think that Changli ended up being the most well-aged 1.x unit, which I don't really think anybody could have seen coming. I mean, arguably you could have, because it is a general rule of thumb that support-type characters or sub-DPS-type characters do tend to age better than main DPS characters, because they get replaced far less often. And Changli also has a very unique playstyle, and now that people actually understand it, I feel like it's only going to continue to be relevant for a long time. So Changli has not fallen off even a little bit. She has...
Look, oftentimes, a lot of people say that Changli is trash, and I defended Changli back in the day because my build was cracked, but I always defended her, saying that, one, it's about learning her gameplay, learning her rotations, right? And then as time progressed, we had, you know, Yao that dropped, and we had other characters that you could swap her into, and it's the fact that her gameplay works so good with quick swapping, it's actually insane. So I do see where she's coming from with this take. Now, I will say there's certain caveats to it, as I do believe Changli is also one of the weaker characters when it comes to, like, premium teams, right? If you look at the premium team for Fusion, you could literally replace Changli with Shorekeeper, and your Fusion team does wonders. People see me do that all the time because I main Brant, and, you know, he just destroys, right? When you look at the Siakona team, or, you know, the Cardathea team, you could still replace characters, but not to the degree of Changli. I feel that Changli is the one character that is not as valuable on any team, right? Like, if you look at the Mono Spectral, right? Shorekeeper, Peebs, and Zani, all of them work together, and you could arguably replace Shorekeeper with Spectral Rover. When it comes to Arrow, you can replace Shorekeeper with Arrow Rover. And you'd still have your mono teams all working perfectly. The premium units are not getting replaced, right? Whereas on the Fusion, Changli is the one that falls off a little bit weaker. But once again, if you add into, you know, her value, that quick swap playstyle and all of that, she is going to have a lot of usability the more units they drop that can fit into that quick swap playstyle.
Has only exponentially became better and better ever since she first came out, and at this point, she's an amazing pull, to be honest. You could recommend her to somebody under so many different circumstances, provided that they're willing to learn her playstyle. If anybody's had it rough from 1.x, it's probably been Yinlin. The thing with Changli Yao is that you could play him in Changli Quickswap, and that team would generally perform just as well, if not better, than just using Yinlin. Granted, Yinlin does offer a more low skill level playstyle, which some people do prefer in fairness. However, that aside, she doesn't really find herself with that many relevant use cases nowadays anymore, and she just kind of exists. There's not really a point to pull her.
That's why when she said that the character that has it the rough, maybe she said the main DPS that has it the rough, but I think the character that has it the roughest from 1.0 is Yinlin. Hands down, Yinlin. Yinlin just finds a hard time fitting into any team. And yes, you can run her with Yao, but like she said, you run Yao, Changli, quick swap comp, you're dealing way more damage, way faster. But Yinlin does offer a more laid-back playstyle with Yao, so I do understand that. And in terms of DPSs, bro, I'm gonna be honest, I think the character that has it the worst is Jian, bro. And I'm gonna tell you my personal opinion as to why I think it's Jian that has it the worst from the 1.0 characters, right? First off, you have Jin Shi. When Jin Shi dropped, she was the strongest from 1.0. She was the strongest for a good amount of time. So she was naturally already stronger than Jian in the damage she was dealing. She was pretty damn good, right? Changli was alright. It took people a little bit of time to get used to her. But like she said, Changli got Brand. And then Lupa. So the Fusion team is all premium if we really talk about it, right? When it comes to Jian, bro, he's been running with Mortefi since day one, bro. He's been running with a 4-star character since day one, bro. And that's just, it hasn't changed, right? Other characters like Changli found new light when they added Brand. They started, you know, quick swapping together, buffing each other, tickling each other. They started doing more damage, right? Camellia had, what's her face? Sanhua, and then she got Roshia, and even though Sanhua S6 and all that, we're talking about like just no dupes on anything, Roshia was better for Camellia. The only character that hasn't gotten pretty much any love whatsoever is Jian and Jin Shi, and Jin Shi stands above Jian in terms of damage, you know. So I do think the character that has it the worst, because they don't really have a partner to play with, is Jian, from my opinion. But I could be wrong. It's all subjective. You guys can tell me who you think has it the worst out of the 1.0 characters. So it's Jian and Yinlin, the first two characters we got over a year ago.
Jinshi has plenty of other teammate options. There's not really a reason to get her for Jinshi specifically at this stage. I already said that with Changli Yao. Well,
back to what I was saying before I continue. Even though we don't have a designated partner for Jinshi, you can run Jinshi with GACHA. You can run Jinshi with Cantarella. You can run Jinshi with Yinlin. So there are synergies that are still there that you can run with Jinshi that are very strong, whereas Jian doesn't really have that too much, right?
For starters, he's not really worth getting anymore, but if you still insist on playing him, then you would rather play Changli instead. And there's Hyper Colcharo too, but come on, you're not being serious, are you?
Hey, yo,
even if you were being serious, it's another situation in which you would rather just play Colcharo with Changli Yao and just quick swap them with each other. Another thing is that old 4-stars, at least the good ones that are noteworthy, they're still very good and only continue to get better. Mortefi's still a great unit, Sanhua's still a great unit.
Yes.
Both of them have not fallen off whatsoever in my opinion. Mortefi just kind of continues to be good at his main thing, which is buffing up heavy attacks, and Sanhua only continues to be a very flexible unit, thanks to having barely any field time whatsoever.
Yep.
She remains as being an absolutely fantastic budget option. However, one other thing that I should add is that these older DPSs do continue to get new options in new regions. They're not left behind. Jinshi manages to use Cantarella. She can use Brant as well if you have Arena as your third slot teammate to provide coordinated attacks.
Yeah.
Jian's able to use Shakona and Arrow Rover, and the list goes on. Ultimately,
so, okay, yeah, you can run Jian with Arrow Rover and Shiakona, but that's such a gimmicky team that it's like, okay, sure, you can run them together. Yeah, but let's be honest, Jian and Mortefi, they just work perfectly together. Shiakona has her spot with Cardathea, and it just works better. You could, you know, arguably bring Shiakona into the Jian comp, but it's not the same as bringing like a Jeja or a Cantarella into the Jinshi comp, where those two fit a lot better. I feel like Gion with Siakona, they don't fit as good, right? They, you know, she's still buffing Gion, yada yada, but it just doesn't feel the same to me personally.
Attacks. Gion's able to use Shakona and Arrow Rover, and the list goes on. Ultimately, you can definitely main an older DPS and still get by just fine. Like I said at the start of this video, it's kinda hard to point these things out, mostly because Wuthering Waves definitely has some really good balancing, and you can main basically anyone and get away with it just fine. With enough practice and enough investment and patience, you can clear with just about everyone. But regardless, I still thought it would be interesting to just kinda see how the meta's changed over 2-point decks, and I'm also curious to see how it's going to change over 3-point decks. These meta changes tend to be quite subtle in my opinion. I don't really actively go, oh my goodness, what a big meta change. Aside from perhaps the fact that Augusta is definitely going to be replacing Changli, otherwise, things have generally been very seamless, and I feel like if you mostly play older characters, you're not going to have too much difficulty as long as you continue to invest into them. Regardless, what do you think about all of this? Have 1-point X's DPS has fallen off? I'd love to hear your perspective. Hopefully this video.
Alright, well, that was a pretty interesting video, ladies and gentlemen. I do gotta say, 1.0 units can still clear content 100%, yes, but you are going to have to put a little bit more investment into them. You are going to have to get them their supports. You are going to have to do a little bit more than you are doing with the current 2.0 and probably 3.0 and so forth and so on, because that's just how these games work. So, yes, there is power creep, animation creep, even though it's very small and it doesn't really impact us in a way where, you know, Gion can't clear anymore. And there is plenty of room for growth for characters like Gion and Jinshi. But let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Is Wuwa moving too fast? Are characters falling off? Or do you think it's about time we start noticing, you know, a little bit of a fall off from characters that came out a year ago? That's going to be it for the video. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Join the Discord, and don't forget, we will be S6 R5ing Augusta and giving out some Lunite subscriptions. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.